let's get into some science fiction books that were published in 2025. This year felt a little bit more scant than last year, but we still got some to talk about, so let's get into it. Okay, so unlike my video from last year, where I had quite a few books that I was very excited to talk about, this year just felt a little bit less. Not in terms of the number of books that were published, but a lot of them were just fun candy reads. There weren't too many substantial, exciting stories that were published this year, and that's not an insult, it just felt like a little bit of a lighter year. That being said, I have divided a bunch of these books up into categories to help you find what you're looking for. So definitely check that out in the slider bar down below, as well as in the description box, so that way you can find what you're looking for. I divided this video up into some novellas. Then I have a couple of reprints that are worth mentioning. Then we're going to get into the standalones. Then we're going to get into the series continuations. And finally, I'm going to finish out this video with some of the books that I either haven't gotten to yet or I'm not going to get to. Let's be real, I don't want to read all of the books that came out this year, and kudos to those of you who want to. But I did want to have a little bit of a definitive list in case you're interested. Obviously, no video can have a complete definitive list, so be sure to include those that I have missed in the comment section in case people are looking for them. But be sure to also tell us if you liked or didn't like the books, so that way we know if we should or shouldn't pick them up. With that said, let's get into this video. All right, first section, the novellas, published in 2025. So I have 3 novellas for you today. Let's start with The Hungry Gods by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the long anticipated 3rd novella that belongs in his Standalone series. I know that's kind of confusing, but this one takes place in a post-apocalyptic climate catastrophe world, and it features Amory, one of the least of the Rabbit clan, who is trying to eke out a living and survive in a poisoned world, until something falls from the sky and destroys her clan in less than 4 hours. And suddenly, the gods have returned and quickly are sweeping up Amory and the rest of the surviving clan members into a long-haul adventure of a war between all of the gods for power. Of course, each of the gods believes that they are saving the world, and yet they don't seem to be remembering some of the most important parts. This story was very interesting, and it had a very unique setting, but overall, I felt kind of meh about this story. It was a little bit mid-tier Adrian Tchaikovsky novella, if you know what I'm saying. Still with a read, but definitely not my favorite. And it didn't have that fun, twisty element at the end that I look so forward to in most of his other novellas. Then we have Automatic Noodle by Annalee Newitz. This is a standalone that is a cozy science fiction, which I didn't know existed, but is apparently a thing now. In this one, we follow several cast-off robots as they are trying to fight off the rust, the prejudice, the review bombers, and even poverty to open up a noodle shop. This may not sound like the highest action novella you've read, and it isn't. It is one that's kind of in the same vein as Legends and Lattes, if you happen to know or like or not like that story. This is one that is very slow going and just deals with the everyday life of this robot group and whether or not they're going to achieve their dream. This one hit me at the really best time in my reading when I was kind of feeling a little bit slumpy. So I really appreciated this one for what it was. It was definitely a cozy little read for a quick weekend, and I really needed it at the time, so this one gets my thumbs up. The next one on the list is Volatile Memory by Seth Haddon. This one features a character named Willa, who is sort of down on her luck and is in need of a big payday to fix up her starship. Suddenly, she gets a call out to all the universe that there is an ancient mask who is full of all kinds of high-tech value, just waiting for the closest person and the fastest to pick it up. So she zips right on over to that local planet and notices that this particular mask is on a dead body. When Willa happens to get the mask first, she notices that this mask is something different, something special that might just give her clues to the murder that just took place. This one was a little bit of murder mystery mixed with a little bit of, it almost felt like magical technology, if you will. And this one, I'm sad to say, was something that, while imaginative, just didn't hit me quite right. Well, let's just say that I am not the target audience for this novella. And so it really wasn't for me. It was one that I didn't like. However, feel free to pick it up and decide for yourself. Now let's get into some of the reprints. I only have 2 of them, and one of them is a novella. It's called Rose/House by Arkady Martine. This one was published, I believe, as an ebook by the author, and yet finally got traditionally published, and so did come out in hardcover here this year. So this one follows a one-of-a-kind smart house that is infused with an AI, and the owner has kept it very secretive. However, the owner has also turned up dead, and suspiciously, it looks like a murder. While the only family member left goes to claim the house, a journalist who just can't stop trying finally talks her way inside the house to realize that she is locked in with some of the most dangerous and eerie things. This book is very much kind of a haunted house technology kind of story. It was very ambiance filled, and I really enjoyed it. I had a great time. The next reprint on this list is There Is No Anti-Memetics Division by Quantum, also known as Sam Hughes. This book was something that was self-published by the author, but recently got a traditional publishing deal, and so it came out in hardcover. Now, this story is a little bit fun and whimsical, but kind of mind-blowing. It was so unique. This book is all about a secret government agency who is responsible for collecting ideas. Some ideas are so contagious they cannot be contained, while others are so uncontagious that they cannot be spread. And yet, this is a lot more complicated than you would think. This story plays a little bit with your mind as we go back and forth with the objects that these particular agents are collecting. I have heard that Sam Hughes updated the traditional published version of the story, and I would be very curious to see if this changes the story a lot or a little. Does it still feel episodic or does it not? I don't know the answer to that, but I would be very interested. Please let me know in the comment section down below. Now let's move on to some standalones. The first one we got to talk about is a booktube darling, and that one is All That We See or Seem by Ken Liu. This book, it starts with the famous artist Ellie, who has gone missing, and her husband is being blackmailed, but he doesn't know for what. He decides to guilt a well-known hacker named Julie Z into helping him find his wife and to help him figure out exactly what the blackmailer is looking for. This book is at best a long-winded mystery that, in my opinion, kind of chased its tail, trying to build backstory and then go back to the mystery and then build backstory and then go back to the mystery in such a circular pattern that I ended up not really loving the story. It kind of constantly took me out of the mystery, and I didn't really love it, especially with how much he harps on how the American dream is a lie. I really started feeling a little concerned for Mr. Liu. I was worried that somebody has crushed his dreams, and this book is kind of the result. So, that being said, I found this book rather average and very easily forgettable, and I hope that Mr. Liu starts sticking with his strengths, which sound like not this. That being said, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever read. It just wasn't up to expectations or the hype. The next book on this list is going to be Future's Edge by Gareth Powell. This one is a standalone, and oh, of course it's a standalone. It's in the standalone section, of course, duh. Anyway, this one features Ursula, who is a woman who has been infected by an alien parasite on her way fleeing Earth's destruction. That's right, kind of an interesting setting. However, her ex is at her doorstep now, knocking on her door, asking her to save all of humanity. And of course, it's just the little things, right? Minus the fact that she hasn't forgiven her ex, this story had a uproariously good time, and it kind of reminded me with similar elements of To Sleep in the Stars, which I had a good time with. So I thought this one was just a fun, thrilling sci-fi candy read. Nothing to write home about, but a lot of fun while you're reading it. Next is The Two Lies of Faven Scythe by Megan O'Keefe. Faven is the crisp-born, half-cyborg, half-human who's destined to navigate amongst the stars. And she is desperate to find somebody to help her find her missing mentor. And so, who better to corner than the famous pirate Armadine, who can help her brave the area of hostile space that she has tracked her mentor down to. Known as the Clutch, this is an area of space that no one dares enter, except, of course, a famous space pirate. This story had quite an adventure in mind, and yet I have to say it was ultimately rather forgettable. I really don't like these kinds of titles. I feel like they're almost clickbait for books, and this title style has ended, in my opinion. This story is quite a bit of a young adult feeling book, and it is a sapphic romance, and overall, it just didn't have a whole lot of substance, in my opinion, and so overall, I found this one to be rather forgettable. I give this one kind of a thumbs down. The next book is Flybot by Dennis E. Taylor. This one I believe is audio only, although feel free to correct me if that is wrong. This one follows physicist Phil and his lifelong friend Celia as they get entangled with a rogue AI's devious plot. They discover a small fly that actually happens to be a robot. Now, the implications of this are pretty big, because no technology exists that's actually that small, at least not yet. However, mummified bodies begin to rack up, and the pressure is on as terrorism is at its height. And Phil and Celia feel like they need to do something, or at least that's what they keep telling themselves. Until one day, Phil gets a phone call, and the AI is on the other end. This story was supposed to be a sci-fi thriller. I feel like it's slightly reminiscent of Michael Crichton's Prey, which was one of my all-time favorites. However, I really enjoyed the story. Again, it wasn't meant to be super deep or super substantial. It was just supposed to be a fun time, and that's exactly what it delivers. And because it's not trying to get bigger than its britches, I did appreciate it for what it was, as well as the humor. The next book on the list is going to be When the Moon Hits Your Eye by John Scalzi. I know what you're thinking, and I was thinking it too. Like the title suggests, the moon has turned to cheese. And one of the things that this book does surprisingly well is it doesn't ask you to suspend your disbelief. Instead, it shows you that the characters are also confused. And it takes the characters and many different points of view, trying to explain exactly what would happen if this were to take place. And with the confusion comes an imminent threat, and that is that the cheese-filled moon essentially breaks into two pieces because of gravity and physics, and is now on a deadly orbit to eventually collide with Earth in the next 2 years. That will cause an apocalyptic event caused by a cheesy moon. Yes, that's true. So everyone starts dealing with the fact that not only how did this happen and how can we reverse it, but also now we have an imminent threat to our lives. And it really asks the question, what would you do with only 2 years left? This story was surprisingly deeper than I expected from the title or from John Scalzi himself. And because of that, it kind of worked. I don't know how he did it, but it kind of worked for me. So I have to say, I do recommend it. Shockingly, I'm surprised. The next book on the list is All the Water in the World by Aaron Caffel. Caffel? No idea. Caffel, I think. Anyway, this book follows a neurodivergent girl whose world comes crashing down when her city floods suddenly in a climate catastrophe. And as someone who struggles with change and fundamentally interacting with people, her family going out to find a new place to live is probably the worst thing to ever happen to her, and yet she has to learn to grow beyond her comfort zone because she wants her and her family to survive. This was a very interesting book, and I really appreciate the neurodivergent main character, but I have to be honest, this is another book that just wasn't for me. I wasn't the target audience for this story, and while it does have those feel-good vibes in this story, and there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it, it just didn't have enough science or adventure for me to really cling on to. And this was a character that I ultimately had a really difficult time relating to. So overall, I kind of have to give this a thumbs down, but remember, it's just my preference. You're totally free to pick it up. The next book on this list is Shroud by Adrian Tchaikovsky. In this book, we have a corporate exploration mission to investigate the dark, secret moon of a distant planet. What's unique about this moon is that nothing can penetrate it. We have no amount of radar or technology that can penetrate the atmosphere, and the company is intrigued. So it sends Juna and Mai and their team down to the planet to investigate underneath the atmosphere and find out what's really down there. However, after going through the atmosphere, the gravity and the hostile environment is too much for the ship's technology, and they crash land into a world that is teeming with alien life. After multiple close calls, we have one particular alien creature who seems to be defending and maybe even guarding the two girls in their ship. And unknown to either of them, they decide to proceed towards survival and hopefully getting a message out to the company for rescue without any communication between alien or human. And this story was full of an alien planet that felt alien. We also have an alien perspective that feels fundamentally alien. As a matter of fact, it kind of reminds me of Morning Light Mountain from Pandora's Star, if you know what I'm saying. There's a lot to be similar here, and I really enjoyed this story. I was shocked at how interested I was in this story and how weird and alien this one was. I give this one a thumbs up. This one is in the running for one of the best books of 2025 that was published in this year. Next, we have a book called Hole in the Sky by Daniel Wilson. This is the guy who wrote Robopocalypse. This story features Dr. Michaela Johnson, who is a NASA astrophysicist, and she notices that there is an unidentified object in the far solar system that is coming straight at us. And after reading her reports, secret government agencies release a secret but very telling telegram. First contact is imminent. Meanwhile, back in the Cherokee Nation, we have a down on his luck, newly single father of Jim, who is trying to connect with his teenage daughter, Tawny. They have a lot of family drama between them, and there's a lot to bridge there. However, as he takes her on a tour of some ancient Cherokee mounds, he begins to see apparitions, and he's not the only one. Suddenly, First Contact is here, and it's a lot different than we expect. It's a weird combination of military grade high technology and some alien intelligence that we can't quite connect with. And yet, it seems to be eerily similar to some of the ancient gods of the indigenous people that Jim happens to know a lot about. This book has a very unique perspective and really balances a lot on what it is exactly our assumptions about reality really say about us, and really kind of neatly folds in the family drama and trauma with the First Contact. And while I do wish there were a little bit more answers at the end of the book, I was overall very satisfied with this story. What I am sad to say is that this is just a fun sci-fi thriller. It doesn't really go into depth on anything that is new or original or different other than taking the Cherokee perspective. And while I do appreciate that, I wished he had given us just a little bit more. That said, I do recommend picking this one up. Next on the list is Where the Axe is Buried by Ray Naylor. This is the author that gave us Mountain in the Sea, which is one of my favorite books from several years past. So this one I was very eagerly anticipating. And this one is more of a dystopian future where many countries have dropped democracy altogether for a new form of political power called rationalization. This is a way for essentially smart AI to govern instead of actual people. And while many nations have converted it to rationalization, we follow a girl growing up in a federation where they still very much have a dictatorship that is in a surveillance state kind of a thing. And this girl's father sacrifices everything to get her up and out. While she is successful and goes and builds a life, she decides that she owes her father one last goodbye and sneaks into the country only to realize that she has been re-trapped there. This one was very intriguing and very eye-opening about why it is that dictatorship and ending one isn't as simple as it should be. And we also have a really interesting perspective from outside looking in. I really thought this one was very cleverly done. I had so many interesting discussions after this book, and you know that means that it's definitely in the running for Best Book of 2025. Let's see what the other ones have to say. Next, we have Tesla and the Pyramids by Jenner Brown. This is a standalone book that obviously came out this year that is in the same vein as the movie National Treasure, if you're a fan of that. This one follows an anthropologist named Professor Tony, who is stopped in the airport by two rogue CIA analysts who are convinced that his father died to keep the secret of where the lost Tesla journal went. And they're convinced that his father left him a clue. All of a sudden, he finds himself wrapped up in their shenanigans and potentially solving the clues of where exactly this lost notebook is and what exactly it contains. I'll give you a hint. It has to do with the pyramids being used as a tool. Very exciting. This book was full of just a lot of pseudoscience that made for a fun, thrilling action adventure that was just a really good, fun candy read if you're interested in that kind of thing. Next, we have a recent release, and that is Outlaw Planet by M.R. Carey. What a beautiful cover this one is. This is a standalone novel, but does take place in the same universe as M.R. Carey's previous series that starts with Infinity Gate. And it does mention some things that happen to some characters. You probably won't notice if you haven't read it, but it might contain just a one tiny mini spoiler in case that does matter to you. That said, this book follows Dog Bitch Bess, a school teacher turned badass gunslinger after the violent murder of her lover. So now she has nothing to live for but some heart-filled vengeance. She also pairs up with Wakeful Jim, a ancient technology gun that has an AI and a personality to go along with it. The two together go out and meet many different people in her revenge quest that slowly push her towards a bigger mystery and solving even a mind control conspiracy. This one was a lot of fun, and it really did give me that Wild Wild West vibe that I expect from a space western. If you're a fan, I do recommend this one. All right, now let's get on to some sequels. So I only have two for you this time. The first is going to be Bee Speaker by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the third book in his Dogs of War trilogy, and it takes place many, many years after the second book, Bearhead. So you do have to read these in order. Now, what's interesting about this one is we get bigger and bigger in scope in every book. And in this one, we're at our biggest scope in the far-flung future where Bee has become legendary. Now, in this world, we have all kinds of animal creatures that have been genetically experimented on to have human-like intelligence or higher. Essentially, kind of like uplifted animals, if you know what I'm saying. And Bee happens to be one of the original team. Now, Bee splits itself into two: the Bee that goes to Earth and the Bee that is in Mars. And the Bee that is in Mars ends up making a very fateful decision that even Bee does not understand. And that's that it particularly saves Mars when Mars colony was about to die. And because of that, Bee has become a legend. Many people think that Bee will always come to save them in their time of need. However, we're following several other creatures as they get a distress signal from Earth after Earth has completely collapsed. So that's right, we're only in a Mars kind of universe. However, in this story, Earth is sending a distress signal, and we think it might be from Earth B. And so Mars decides to go down and investigate. This story is really hard to explain without all of the other events that happen in the other books, but trust me when I say that I found this a worthy sequel. And I really enjoyed all three of these books, although I do have to say, book number one definitely owns my heartstrings. Next on the list is Shattering Peace by John Scalzi. This is the 7th book in the Old Man's War series. And in this one, we're following a grown-up Gretchen, the girl who was a best friend of Zoe from book number 4. In this one's, Gretchen's skills, experience, and training with Zoe come in handy as she is asked to investigate the disappearance of an entire colony that has been kept top secret by the government as an experiment to determine whether humans and aliens can live in peace or not. In the meanwhile, she also has the catch of having the discovery that her ex-boyfriend is among the missing. Oh, and also, one of the most feared and formidable alien races who are killing everyone in the galaxy except for themselves are on their way to visit right now. This book was a very fantastic return to form for John Scalzi. As someone who did not love books 5 and 6, I have to say I was really pleased with this installment. I'm really glad I ended up picking it up. And if you are somebody who doesn't want to read the full series, I will say that as long as you pick up book number 4, this book will make a whole lot more sense. So it can't necessarily be read as a standalone, but if you read book 4, you could definitely easily skip books 5 and 6 and still understand what was going on. And that does it for all the Sci-Fi 2025 book releases. Now, you're going to notice that we're not quite done to the end of the video, and that's because I have saved my last section for you. This one, I'm not going to discuss about any of the summaries. Instead, I'm just going to show you the book and the author, because if you want to check out other book releases, you might have to do yourself a favor and go check out the summaries yourself. I'm sorry about that, and I can't get to everything, but do check them out if you're interested. So the first one on this list of books that I haven't gotten to yet, and might not, is Fourth Consort by Edward Ashton. This one is a standalone. We then have Of Monsters and Mainframe by Barbara Truelove. Then we have We Lived on the Horizon by Erica Swiler. This is a dystopian, I believe. Then we have Hemajane Luck by Makana Yamamoto. Then we have The Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. This one doesn't quite look science fiction to me, but what do I know? Then we have Space Brooms by A.G. Rodriguez. This one looks fun. Then Salt Crop by Yumi Kitse. Next, we have Slow Gods by Claire North. This one is also a recent release and is a standalone space opera book that I am dying to get to. Sadly, the audio release is not until December. So this one is one I'm planning to pick up soon. Then of course we have some big sequels that I haven't gotten to yet, mostly because I haven't finished the other books in the series. The first one is The Martian Contingency by Mary Robinette Kowal, book number 4 in her Lady Astronaut series. Then we have The Miranda Conspiracy by James Cambias, book number 3 in his Goodell Operations series. Then we have The Folded Sky by Elizabeth Bear, which is a loosely linked book number 3 in her White Space series. And finally, last but not least, is The Shadows Upon Time by Christopher Rocchio, book number 7 in the Sun Eater series. And actually, that does finally do it for all of the books that I know of that came out in 2025. Let me know in the comments section down below if I missed any. I can't get to them all, but I really appreciate you adding to the video content, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. See ya, and happy holidays.